Imagine pulling a small 5-cent coin from an old family collection, a forgotten drawer, or a dusty box in the attic, and wondering whether that ordinary-looking nickel could actually be worth a fortune. Welcome back to the channel, Coin Collectors. If you enjoy discovering hidden details in old American coins, make sure you subscribe, because today we are investigating one specific coin, the 1975 United States Jefferson 5-cent nickel. And there is an important warning before we begin. You may have heard claims that a 1975 nickel can be worth $10 million. That is an extraordinary claim, but there is no reliable evidence supporting a $10 million market value for a normal 1975 Jefferson nickel. The real story is much more interesting because certain varieties and exceptional examples can command significant premiums. So look closely, because the date alone is not enough. The 1975 Jefferson nickel carries a face value of just 5 cents. The obverse features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, facing left. The design was created by Felix Schlag, whose Jefferson portrait and Monticello reverse became one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. Turn the coin over and you will see Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, with the inscriptions EPLURBUSUNUM, United States of America, 5 cents, and MONTICLLO. The standard 1975 Jefferson nickel is made from 75% copper and 25% nickel. It weighs 5 grams and measures about 21.2 millimeters across, with a plain edge. The Philadelphia issue had a mintage of about 181.8 million, while the 1975 Denver issue had a much larger mintage of about 401.9 million. That means most 1975 nickels are not rare. And this is where many online videos get confusing. A coin can be old without being rare. A coin can have an interesting date without being valuable. And a 5-cent coin does not automatically become a $5,000 or $10 million coin simply because it has survived for decades. But now comes the fascinating part. If you have a 1975 Jefferson nickel, look carefully at the mint mark. The D tells us the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Collectors have identified a remarkable 1975 variety in which the mint mark was placed unusually high, so high that it nearly touches the date area. The variety is catalogued by NGC as a misplaced mint mark and is cross-referenced as FS401. This tiny difference is exactly the kind of detail that can turn an ordinary-looking nickel into a collector's coin. Imagine finding one in an old roll of nickels your family saved decades ago. You might initially see nothing more than Jefferson's portrait and the date 1975. But under magnification, the position of that Denver D could tell a completely different story. And there is another detail collectors watch for on 1975 nickels, the steps beneath Monticello. When a Jefferson nickel has exceptionally clear, uninterrupted steps, it may qualify for the prestigious full steps, or FS, designation. PCGS explains that the 1975 D is one of the tougher Denver Jefferson nickels of the 1970s to find with full steps. This is an important lesson in coin collecting. Sometimes rarity is not about how many coins were originally produced. It is about how many survived in exceptional condition. Millions of coins may have been struck, but circulation creates scratches, marks, discoloration, and wear. Finding a coin that remains extremely sharp and attractive can be much harder. So what could a 1975 nickel actually be worth? An ordinary circulated example is generally a common coin and may trade for little more than its face value, but certified high-grade examples can bring substantially more. PCGS records a $1,080 auction result for a 1975 Jefferson nickel graded XF40, while a separate 1975 full steps example has a recorded $750 result. These are specific documented coins, not values that apply to every 1975 nickel. And the misplaced mint mark variety is even more interesting. A documented 1975D misplaced mint mark example, graded XF40, sold for $1,080 at Heritage Auctions in May 2022. Another recorded example sold for $750. That is impressive for a 5-cent coin, but it is still nowhere close to $10 million. So where does that leave the famous $10 million claim? The honest answer is simple. There is no reliable auction evidence showing a normal 1975 Jefferson nickel selling for $10 million. A claim like that should not be repeated as fact without extraordinary documentation. Instead, the real treasure hunt is finding the unusual version. Check the date, check whether there is a D mint mark, examine the mint mark's position carefully, inspect the condition, then turn the coin over and study the steps of Monticello. Do not clean the coin, because cleaning can damage its collectible value. And remember, do not confuse a damaged coin with a genuine mint variety. A scratch, hit, or alteration made after the coin left the mint is not automatically a valuable error. The most valuable discoveries are usually the ones that can be authenticated and supported by established grading and auction records. So if you have a 1975 Jefferson nickel sitting in an old coin jar, inherited collection, bankroll, or forgotten drawer, don't assume it is worthless, and don't assume it is worth millions either. Look closely. That tiny mint mark may matter. Those Monticello steps may matter. And the difference between an ordinary 5-cent coin and a genuinely collectible example can come down to details that are almost invisible to the naked eye. The next time someone tells you that every 1975 nickel is worth $10 million, remember the real lesson of numismatics. Excitement is great, but evidence matters more. A 5-cent coin may be ordinary. A high-grade specimen may be valuable. A rare, authenticated variety may be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But the true value is determined by rarity, condition, variety, authentication, collector demand, and actual market results, not by an eye-catching number on a thumbnail. So check your old coins carefully, because you never know what small detail might be hiding in plain sight. If you enjoyed this investigation, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments, do you have a 1975 Jefferson nickel in your collection? And would you like us to investigate another old US coin and uncover its real value? Until next time, keep looking closely, because sometimes the smallest details tell the biggest stories. If you love American coin history and searching for rare coins hiding in everyday collections, subscribe now, because today we're taking a close look at the 1990p Jefferson nickel. And before we begin, let's clear up one of the biggest claims surrounding this coin. You may see headlines suggesting a 1990p nickel could be worth $12 million. That figure is not supported by reliable auction evidence. But don't click away, because the real story is still fascinating, and a genuine high-grade 1990p nickel has brought a surprisingly strong price for a modern 5-cent coin. So what should you actually look for? The 1990p Jefferson nickel was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The P mint mark appears on the obverse near the lower right area of Jefferson's portrait. The coin features Thomas Jefferson on the front, facing left. The design was created by Felix Schlag, whose Jefferson portrait first appeared on the nickel in 1938 and continued for decades. Turn the coin over and you'll see Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, surrounded by the inscriptions identifying the United States, the denomination, and the motto E-Pluribus Unum. The standard 1990p Jefferson nickel is made from 75% copper and 25% nickel. It weighs 5 grams, measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and has a plain edge. According to PCGS, Philadelphia struck approximately 661.6 million examples in 1990. That number tells us something important. Most 1990p nickels are not rare. Most people could find one and spend it without thinking twice. But collectors know that mintage alone does not tell the entire story. Look closely. One of the most important things to examine on a Jefferson nickel is the condition of the coin. A circulated nickel can develop scratches, contact marks, wear, and damage, but an exceptionally well-preserved coin can become much more desirable to collectors. And there is another feature collectors watch carefully: the steps beneath Monticello. When those steps are sharply defined and uninterrupted, the coin can qualify for a full steps designation. That distinction can make a dramatic difference in collector demand, particularly at very high grades. PCGS currently lists separate pricing for the 1990p regular issue and the 1990p full steps variety, with substantially higher guide values at the top end. Now imagine finding a 1990p nickel that has spent decades protected inside an old album, instead of circulating through thousands of people's pockets. The date is ordinary. The denomination is ordinary. But the condition could be extraordinary. That is where the hidden treasure angle becomes real. Maybe someone inherited a collection from a grandparent. Maybe an old album has been sitting untouched in a closet for years. Maybe a roll of coins was saved and forgotten. These are possibilities, not guaranteed discoveries, but they are exactly why collectors examine old coins carefully. Now comes the question everyone wants answered. What could a 1990p Jefferson nickel actually be worth? For an ordinary circulated example, the answer is usually modest. This is a common modern Jefferson nickel, so simply having the 1990 date and the Philadelphia P does not make it a valuable rarity. But exceptional examples are a different story. PCGS records an auction result of $2,990 for a 1990p Jefferson nickel graded MS-60, sold by Heritage Auctions in January 2009. That is a documented auction result for a specific certified coin, not a value that applies to every 1990p nickel. And that distinction is extremely important. A circulated 1990p nickel might be worth little more than face value. A nice uncirculated example can be worth more. A high-grade full-step specimen can command a significant premium. And an exceptional certified example can reach the hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on grade, designation, rarity, and market demand. But $12 million? There is no reliable evidence that a normal 1990p Jefferson nickel has sold for anything close to that amount. So don't throw away your ordinary nickel, but don't assume you've discovered a fortune either. Instead, examine it like a collector. Check the date. Check for the P mint mark. Look carefully at Jefferson's portrait for unusual doubling or other genuine mint-made characteristics. Turn the coin over. Study Monticello. Look closely at the steps. Examine the surfaces under good lighting. And most importantly, remember that damage caused after a coin leaves the mint is not automatically a valuable error. A scratch or dent is not the same thing as a documented mint variety. If you believe your coin has an unusual feature, professional authentication and grading can be important before assigning it a major value. The surprising lesson of the 1990p Jefferson nickel is that rarity isn't always obvious. Millions were produced, yet the finest surviving examples can still attract serious collector attention. That's why two coins with exactly the same date can have dramatically different values. One might be a 5-cent coin. Another might be a certified collector piece worth hundreds or thousands. And the difference could be hidden in details that most people never notice. So the next time you see a 1990p Jefferson nickel, don't immediately believe a sensational $12 million headline, and don't immediately spend the coin either. Look closely. The real mystery isn't whether every 1990p nickel is worth millions. It isn't. The real mystery is whether the particular coin in your hand has the exceptional condition, full steps quality, or other legitimate characteristic that collectors are willing to pay a premium for. That's the real excitement of coin collecting. A coin doesn't have to be worth millions to tell an incredible story. Sometimes the discovery is simply realizing that a 5-cent coin you almost ignored deserves a second look. If you enjoyed this investigation, subscribe to the channel for more rare US coin discoveries. And tell us in the comments, do you have a 1990p Jefferson nickel in your collection, an old coin jar, or a family album? And which US coin should we investigate next? Keep looking closely, because the smallest details can sometimes make the biggest difference. Imagine finding a 1998 Lincoln penny sitting unnoticed in an old drawer, a family coin jar, or a forgotten collection, and wondering whether that tiny 1-cent coin could actually be worth serious money. Most people would spend it without a second thought, but collectors know that sometimes the smallest details can make a coin far more interesting than its face value. US coins. Today, we're taking a close look at the 1998 Lincoln Memorial Cent, the Denver Mint penny that millions of Americans have probably handled, but that can become collectible when exceptional condition, unusual varieties, or genuine mint errors enter the story. And there is one important fact we need to establish right away. Claims that an ordinary 1998 penny is worth $430,000 or millions are not supported by reliable auction records. The real story is more interesting because it shows exactly how professional collectors determine what a coin is actually worth. The 1998 is a Lincoln Memorial Cent struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark beneath the date on the obverse. The coin carries Abraham Lincoln's portrait, based on the historic design created by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse features the Lincoln Memorial design associated with Frank Gasparo. By 1998, the cent was being made from copper-plated zinc rather than the bronze composition used on earlier Lincoln cents. It weighs about 2.5 grams and measures 19 millimeters across, with a plain edge. And here is where the numbers become important. The Denver Mint produced approximately 5.225 billion 1998 Lincoln cents. That enormous mintage tells us something immediately. The normal 1998 penny is not an ultra-rare coin. In circulated condition, most examples have little premium over 1 cent. Even an ordinary uncirculated example is not automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. So why would collectors still examine one? Because condition can make a dramatic difference. Look closely at the surface. A coin that has spent years circulating through pockets, cash registers, and coin machines will usually have scratches, marks, and loss of original shine. But a coin that escaped circulation and preserved its original red color can become much more desirable to collectors. Professional grading is important here. Collectors may encounter designations such as brown, and red. A sharply preserved red example with very few marks can command substantially more than a worn brown coin. And this is where the 1998 gets interesting. PCGS records an auction result of $529 for a 1998 Lincoln cent graded MS-66, sold by Bowers and Mariner in January 2011. That is a documented high result, but notice the difference between that coin and an ordinary penny found in circulation. The valuable example was not simply valuable because it said 1998 Its condition and certification were major parts of the story. There are also specially recognized 1998 examples with a proof-like appearance. PCGS records a 1998 red proof-like variety with an auction result of $450 for an MS-68 RDPL example. Again, this does not mean every shiny 1998 penny is worth $450. The designation applies to a particular certified coin with exceptional characteristics. So what should you actually look for? Start with the date, 1998. Then check the mint mark. The D indicates Denver. Next, inspect Lincoln's portrait and the lettering. Look for unusual doubling, missing design elements, dramatic off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or other genuine mint-made abnormalities. But be careful, damage that happens after a coin leaves the mint can look unusual without being a valuable mint error. This is one of the biggest lessons in coin collecting. A damaged coin is not automatically an error coin. A discolored coin is not automatically rare. A shiny coin is not automatically valuable. And a coin from an older-looking collection is not automatically worth thousands. Authentication becomes especially important when someone claims an extraordinary value. A genuine mint error or major variety should be examined carefully, and high-value claims should be supported by established grading and auction evidence. Now comes the question everyone wants answered. What could a 1998 D. Lincoln cent actually be worth? For a normal circulated example, the answer is generally very modest, often around face value. Better uncirculated examples can bring more, while exceptional certified specimens can reach into the tens or hundreds of dollars, and the documented PCGS auction record for a standard MS-66 example is $529. PCGS also records other high-grade sales, including an MS-68 RD example at $90 and an MS-67 example at $20 in the cited auction records. So where does the $430,000 claim come from? There is no reliable evidence in the sources checked here showing a 1998 D. Lincoln cent selling for $430,000. That means we should not present $430,000 as the value of this coin. And honestly, that makes the story better, not worse. Because the real lesson is that coin collecting is not about throwing enormous numbers at ordinary coins. It is about discovering the tiny details that separate an ordinary piece of pocket change from a genuinely scarce collectible. Imagine opening an old family album and finding a perfectly preserved 1998 D cent. Maybe it spent decades protected from circulation. Maybe its surfaces are unusually clean. Maybe it has a legitimate mint error that deserves professional examination. Suddenly, that 1-cent coin becomes a fascinating piece of modern American numismatic history. But remember, rarity, condition, variety, errors, authentication, collector demand, and actual market results all matter. So if you have a 1998 D. Lincoln cent, don't assume you've discovered a $430,000 fortune. Instead, look closely. Check the mint mark. Examine the surfaces. Compare the design carefully. And if the coin appears genuinely unusual or exceptionally preserved, consider having it evaluated by a reputable professional grading service or experienced numismatist. The 1998 D. Lincoln cent proves an important rule of coin collecting. The date alone doesn't make a coin rare. Sometimes, the real treasure is hidden in the condition, the variety, or a genuine mint-made mistake. And that means the next time you see a little Lincoln penny sitting in a drawer, don't dismiss it immediately. It might not be worth a fortune, but it might be worth taking a second look. If you enjoyed this investigation into the 1998 D. Lincoln cent, subscribe for more rare U.S. coin discoveries and honest value investigations. And tell us in the comments, do you have a 1998 D penny in your collection, coin jar, or old family box? And which old U.S. coin should we investigate next?